This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, Real MVPs, Ricky Widmer here, along with the Mark Weber.
Dub them ease.
And we are back for another edition of the Onside Kick right here on Most Valuable Podcast. Everything NFL here for MVP. Got a jam-packed show for you guys again. I know Mark is in a happy mood because your Bears just keep winning.
NFC North champs here. Feels pretty good.
They did clinch. They did. Plus, they have done something that you're not used to in a long time.
Beat the Packers.
Beating the Packers.
Actually, they beat the Packers on Brett Favre night a couple years ago.
I'm making a Lovey joke.
It was great.
Because Lovey was like, hey, we're going to beat the Packers, and then he never beat the Packers.
He probably did once or twice.
Not enough, and that's why he got fired as the head coach.
This is actually the first time the Bears have had 10 wins since Lovey Smith got fired.
That's what you were saying. You made that tweet. And we've got a jam-packed show. Got to mention that. We're going to be talking AFC Wild Card Race, Mark. The Colts and the Titans not going to make it easy.
Surprisingly good race.
On the Ravens. We're also going to look at the LA Rams, who are above your Chicago Bears. And
just barely clinging on.
If their fan base should be worried. And then before we make our picks, we're going to look at the Denver Broncos and Vance Joseph, because it's getting to that time where we are, it would be technically, this is Tuesday, so we're 2 weeks away from Black Monday in the NFL, where all those coaches get fired, and then we talk about
have a jam-packed
new
show that day.
Jobs that will be opening up, because there could be a few of them. We're going to look at Vance Joseph, because that could be a job that opens up. Before we get into everything, make sure to check out our Patreon page down below in the description. Thank you to Soapy Muffin, our newest patron. He even commented on Too Old to Game, said that his name could be a whole segment on its own. I've already asked you if you would eat a Soapy Muffin, I don't have to ask you again. Make sure to also, you can support the channel by getting yourself an MVP t-shirt either down below in the description or at mostvaluablepodcast.com, where you can catch MVP each and every day. And then last but not least, please go and rate and review us on iTunes. Do you think we got a new one this week? Because I'm going to do the same thing I do for the Primetime Podcast.
Do you want me to answer my actual answer, or do you want me to say yes for the camera? I'm going to say yes for the camera. I said yes for the camera.
It was a no. Our only one has been by King B. Lang, and he said, great show. Gave us a 5-star rating.
Thanks, bud.
You can have your rating or your rated review read here on the Onside Kick. Go and rate and review us at iTunes and Apple Podcasts. But, Mark, let's jump into the show. First thing we're going to take a look at is this AFC Wild Card Race, because this past week we had a couple games go down. We had the Colts shut out the Dallas Cowboys. We had the Tennessee Titans do the same thing to an NFC East team. They shut out the New York Football Giants. And then on top of it, the Ravens, they go ahead and beat the NFC South Tampa Bay Buccaneers 20-12. All three getting wins, all three at 8-6, fighting for that sixth spot in the AFC Wild Card. And the question that I want to ask you to start the podcast is, the two teams looking out, the Colts and the Titans, will they be able to do enough to catch the Baltimore Ravens in this wild card race?
So here's my thought with this one. My thought is it doesn't necessarily matter.
It doesn't matter.
Right? And here's why. So for Week 16, looking at these teams, I mean, the toughest matchup for all of these teams is going to be the Baltimore Ravens versus the Chargers, right? Because that game is going to be incredibly important for the Ravens. They want to win that game, because if they win that game, they're pretty smooth sailing.
And the Chargers as well, because if the Chargers win and the Seahawks can beat the Chiefs, the Chargers get home field or become the team that has home field advantage throughout the playoffs.
And that's going to be a tough one for sure. So that's going to be a very important game. But for me, it's especially important because I look at a different team that we didn't necessarily mention. That's the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're going to play the Saints this week. And I'm sorry, but there's a good chance they're going to lose to the Saints this week because it's at New Orleans. Very tough to play in the Dome. Very challenging. If the Ravens win and the Steelers lose, all the Ravens got to do once again, win next week. because if they win out these 2 games, they win the division, say goodbye to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they really have some crucial parts. But when it comes to the Colts, when it comes to the Titans, I'm a little nervous about the Titans being able to make this impact and be able to win these games to go forward. And part of the reasons I say that is like, yes, they're going to play the Washington Redskins this week, and they should win that game. But they're going to play the Colts, the other team in this conversation, for Week 17.
Well, and that's why I'm going to say this is what I'm thinking in my head. And I agree with you. Like, it's really, can they catch the Ravens/Steelers? Because the Steelers do find themselves in this situation because of who they play. Let's say the Steelers lose. That would make them 8-6-1. If both the Colts and Titans win, that will put them at 8-6 or 9-6. That means that they are, I believe, a half game then ahead of the Steelers. It should be because of that tie. 8-6-1 lower than the 9-6. So really, to me, what it comes down to is first the Ravens need to win, because if they win, they can kind of lock up or almost lock up the AFC North. But really, all the Colts and Titans need to do is win. And then in my mind, what's going to happen is Week 17, I was wrong on the game, but I knew it was going to be a divisional opponent. I thought that the NFC North would be a little bit tighter.
AFC or
NFC. I thought that the Bears-Vikings.
Oh, okay.
Way back, I said that that's going to be the game to get flexed into primetime. With the Bears winning that game, probably not. What'll happen, though, is if either the Ravens lose this week or the Steelers lose this week, all the Colts and Titans have to do is win. And that game, Colts-Titans, Week 17, will be our Sunday night game to see who gets into the playoffs. And looking at these two teams, like the tweet that I had lined up from your boy, our boy, Shane O'Mac on Twitter, he hit me up and said, the Colts team really impressed me today, especially the defense, 23-0 over the Cowboys. And it looks like this team is clicking at the right time, because the big question we had before the year about the Colts is, what are they going to look like with Andrew Luck being back? Are they going to have enough? Are they going to have a run game? Well, now you got Mac kind of leading that run game for them. And then you have the Titans. The big question was, how are they going to look in Mike Vrabel's first year? And I know there's going to be Titan fans out there that say, well, guys, you shouldn't have had that question. We were a playoff team last year. There's no surprise that we should be here this year. But both of these teams had so many questions between us at the beginning of the year, and now they find themselves in a position to make the playoffs and be a wild card team.
Yeah, and I actually said that the Titans, if I'm remembering correctly, and those were old predictions, so we'd have to look back. I think I had the Titans squeezing their way into the playoffs. First round getting knocked out, but hey, that's a different story.
Well, and I'm thinking like when Vrabel got hired, and we talked about Mike Vrabel.
Yeah, and to me, it was very much I don't know how I feel. I'm not against this, but I'm not for it. I'm really uncertain. I got to wait and see some things. But the thing for me when it comes to Tennessee Titans is simply that when they win, they look great. And when they lose,
they look bad.
They look really bad. So, it's just difficult. This is a team that I'm never 100% sure. Sometimes the offense is barely getting by. Other times the offense is running, very smoothly, and everything looks great. Derrick Henry's kind of come off so well lately that things are looking really good with that run game, but Marcus Mariota is not really giving a ton of production of what you'd love to see. And with Corey Davis, too, he's starting to kind of come into it, but we're still waiting to see just a little bit more out of Corey Davis.
Let's be honest. The one giving this offense for the Titans that kind of boost late the last 2 weeks is Derrick Henry.
Exactly.
Like I said to Brandon on What's Your Fantasy is the last 2 weeks, ever since that Jaguar game, he's kind of looked like Derrick Henry from Alabama, not the Derrick Henry that we've seen consistently in Tennessee.
Yeah. And that's going to be a big advantage against the Redskins, obviously, but against the Colts, too. I mean, the Colts are a team that's going to be a lot more offensive offensively focused than defensively focused. So a strong run game like that out of Derrick Henry not only is going to help you against that, but it's also going to help keep Andrew Luck off the field.
And you were right, by the way. You did have the Titans as the 6th seed.
Thought so.
You had New England, Baltimore, L.A., the Chargers, Jacksonville, Pittsburgh, and Tennessee were your preseason playoff teams.
I wanted to keep Jacksonville out of the playoffs so badly, and I decided not to do it because I'm like, no, they're not going to pull a Jacksonville. They did.
I had Jacksonville as my 1st seed. I had Jacksonville, New England, Pittsburgh, Denver, L.A., and Indianapolis. So the thing with this one, and it's kind of, I feel it in the conversation even here, is before the season, I was a little bit higher on the Colts.
Yeah.
You were a little bit higher on the Titans. And for me, the thing that I wonder with this Colts team is I wonder if it's the old adage that we hear from time to time, but maybe not really because of Andrew Luck. But how many times have you heard it with teams where it's like, you know what, you could even say it about the Bears this year, where it's like you expect one thing, they outplay those expectations, maybe get to a playoff, win a playoff game, and then you got the fan base thinking like, well, you know what? We weren't supposed to be here. We weren't supposed to be on this trajectory. Now it changes our trajectory a little bit and our projections heading into the next year. I think back to like the Cubs when we made that first run from wild card to NLCS. Oh, we lost to the Mets. It's okay. We weren't supposed to be here. The next 2 years, though, we then expected to be there because of what we have done. Like, this could be that start for both of these two teams. The Colts mainly because of bolstering that defense and getting the young offensive linemen they got in the draft last year.
And just to look at it with what can happen, I mean, you got a team like the Jaguars that have been bottom feeders for years, all of a sudden have a good season. And unfortunately for the Jaguars, they went right back to being bottom feeders. But things can change fast. And Frank Reich, it took a little bit, but he got this team going. He got Andrew Luck moving again. You know, they figured out a run game, at least enough of a run game. They've done what they needed to do to finally get this team moving in the correct direction. It took a little bit, but you know what? It doesn't matter.
They started out 1-5.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what the beginning of the season is. What matters is at the end. Ask the New York Football Giants.
Yeah.
You know, you can go on a roll and go out there and win the playoffs and win the Super Bowl.
And that's the thing that I'm going to say of why, if I had to put my money on it, I would say the Colts get in over the Titans right now. And the reason I say that is, yes, the Titans have been on a little bit of a win streak. Yes, they had, after they went 3-4 coming out of the bye, they got wins over Dallas, who, let's be honest, wasn't the same Dallas team that we were seeing then after they got Amari Cooper. I believe that was Cooper's first game with the Cowboys. They got a win already at home against New England, but then you look at it. They lose to the Colts in Indianapolis. They lose to Houston at Houston. And the last 3 games we've seen, close game, but they beat the Jets. They blew out Jacksonville, who hasn't been good this year. They shut out New York, who hasn't been good. But the one thing that I will say, and I'll give Tennessee their credit for, they basically shut down Saquon Barkley, which no team has been able to do this year. So I give them props for that, although I kind of shoot them with the negative because the Giants have not been the greatest team this year. That I wonder if this Titan team, that it'll be this week, they beat the Redskins no problem, because let's be honest, I even thought the Redskins got lucky last week getting the win that they did, having that pass like bounce around and then get thrown back into like their own guy's hands where it should have been intercepted. And I just feel like that'll be a win on a Saturday game. And then we get to week 17 and a team like Indianapolis, who we've seen after going 1-5, you could say that their schedule hasn't been the easiest as well. Buffalo, but like Buffalo's a weird team that's played up to teams and then's played down. Like, Oakland's kind of easy. You got 2 Jacksonville games, with that one Jacksonville game being a 6-0 loss. Miami hasn't been that good, but they've also shut out Dallas and have beaten Houston in Houston as well. I wonder if it's going to be Titans win easily this week. Week 17, Colts get the win over the Titans.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I got going on. I mean, for me, I have in Week 16, I'm going to assume that both these teams are probably gonna win these games. I mean, Titans can beat the Redskins. Colts can easily beat the Giants. I'm not concerned about either one of those. The two teams get to play each other, so that's the big one. But for me, what makes the big difference is for Week 16, I'll say it right now, the Ravens I have winning out these last two games.
Okay.
For Week 17, really? Oh yeah, definitely. They've got a lot to play for because for them, I mean,
but they got a tough schedule.
They do. Well, they have a tough Week 16.
I'm going to say that Week 17 game, the Browns are going to come to play.
It's at home, though. I'm not that concerned about that.
The Browns are not the Browns this year. The Browns are
correct,
a little bit different.
But the Browns don't have... I'm sitting here looking at it like the Ravens know we have to win these two games or we're not in the playoffs.
And Baker is going to be looking to spoil. That's the wild card to me.
Yeah, but Baker and the Browns are inconsistent, so I'm not that worried. I think the Ravens are a better team. For me, the reason I put them over the Chargers is going to come over for the fact of, when it comes to playing for seeding... You're talking about upsets and being the spoiler. The Ravens really want to be that spoiler, but they also know they have to win this game. So
even though it's away from Baltimore,
that's being a spoiler.
Okay,
that's being a true, genuine spoiler. And I think that the Colts get in. I think that the Ravens have a better chance of getting in right now than the Steelers do. When I'm looking at it,
I'm going to be on the other side of it. I'm going to look at here real quickly. I just want to see with the Bengals. Because they've been a team that early on in the year, I heard so many things from their fan base, and have not heard them since they went 4-1. Let's see. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to go with it. Here's going to be my prediction. I'm going to say that Titans go 1-1. They beat the Redskins, lose to the Colts.
Yep.
The Colts win out in their next two. They're going to beat the Giants this week and beat the Titans Week 17. The Ravens... I'm going to have the Ravens lose. I'm going to be bold. They're going to lose both games. They're going to lose. The Chargers are the game for sure that I know that I feel strong that they're going to lose, but it's that Cleveland game I look at it. And this Cleveland team, I feel like Baker Mayfield is not going to go out just lying on his back. That is going to be a close game. Cleveland, I know it was in Cleveland. I know it was with Joe Flacco, not Lamar Jackson. They only won in overtime 12-9 against that Cleveland team. Those divisional games are usually close. I'm going to say that Pittsburgh, to me, has a better chance to make the playoffs over the Baltimore Ravens. Well, not make the playoffs, win the division. Because the thing that'll be interesting is, so let's see, Colts would be 10-6. The Ravens would be 8-8. The Titans would be 9-7. That would mean that if the Titans go 1-1, Colts go 2-0, Ravens go 0-2, and the Steelers go 1-1, that would mean the Steelers would win the North. And if I'm not mistaken, both the Colts and the Titans would get into the playoffs over the Ravens. So, I mean, to me, there's a small possibility of that even happening for Baltimore, that they lose against the Chargers, get upset by the Browns, and then they're looking on the outside looking in.
I don't think both those teams can get in.
Well, it would be the Ravens would be 8-8.
Doesn't matter because of the Chargers and the Texans and New England.
No, well, you're right. So it would be the Colts.
Only one of these teams can get in.
Then it would be the Colts. It would be the Colts that would get in because they would be at 10-6. I completely forgot that the Chargers would. The Chargers to me, like, I forget that.
Chargers, and don't you forget about us.
No, it's like that thing where, like, last week everyone's like, "Oh, Ricky, don't you know the tiebreakers?" Well, I wasn't thinking about the tiebreaker because the Chargers to me at 11-3, I just think of them as a divisional team. Like, oh, they're going to be a division. It's like, no, the Chiefs are ahead of them. So the Colts would get into the playoffs. Ravens and Titans would be out. Steelers would be. I think that there's, although if I had to put my money on it, I would say Ravens go 1-1, Steelers go 1-1. I think there's a better chance, or a higher chance, I'll say, of the Ravens losing both of their games before the Steelers lose both of theirs.
I'm just feeling that Lamar Action Jackson.
Which is weird because I was really high on him coming out of the draft.
He's looking real good.
And I believe, weren't you one that questioned him? coming
I
out
didn't
of the draft?
necessarily question him. I just loved the joke above him being a wide receiver. But I do have my concerns about mobile quarterbacks.
Wouldn't run the 40.
Wouldn't run the 40. And then the first time he goes out there and plays, what's he do? Runs all over the field.
Mm-hmm. Well, he still is running all over the field. Like, that's a big concern with him, is that people are saying, like, Michael Vick has even come out and said, you can't do that. Like, there's analysts that are like, doesn't he know that RG3 is literally on the bench because the same thing happened to him?
RG3's like, you keep running, boy. You keep running.
You keep running because
I'm going to get my day.
So, just to finalize it, you're saying that with your playoff teams, the Ravens win the division.
Yep.
And then the Titans get in?
Nope, the Colts.
Okay. So you have Ravens winning the division, Colts getting in, where I'm going to say Steelers do enough to win the division, and then the Colts get in for the Colts are going to get in because they're going to win both of their 2 games in mine. This is where you guys come in. Let us know what you guys think down below in the comment section. What do you think with these teams? What's going to happen? Even throw the Steelers in there because them and the Ravens are fighting for the AFC North still. Let us know what you think in the comment section. But Mark, let's move on into our next topic. And what we are taking a look at is an NFC team now. This is a team that is one of the top 2 teams in the NFC, and that is the LA Rams. And I'm going to get right to it. I'm going to ask you.
Yep.
After the last 3 games, because although they beat Detroit, Jared Goff was a little shaky. After these last 3 games, the Lions, the Bears, the Eagles, is it time to worry about the Los Angeles Rams?
I'm going to say yes to a degree.
Okay.
So I'm not saying that we need to hit the panic button and everybody needs to freak out. The Rams are all of a sudden terrible. They're not going to lose to the Cardinals. You know, the 49ers, I think, can at least play them tough. But I'm not going to sit there and say that they're probably going to lose to the 49ers.
Yeah, I think they're going to win out.
Yeah, but I do think the reason why the LA Rams should be a little bit concerned is the fact that teams have basically figured out, oh, this is how you beat the Rams. If Todd Gurley is not an effective part of this game and you put more pressure on Jared Goff, then you can win. And I mean, Chicago showed exactly what the Saints needed to see. Not that the Saints didn't already know it because they've already beaten the Rams, but they showed them of just further proof of, hey, New Orleans, if you're the home field advantage, you will beat the Rams. Because for whatever reason, it gets loud, Jared Goff starts to struggle. And, you know, he's still a young quarterback. He's still a very talented quarterback, but it's difficult to go into New Orleans. It's difficult to, now this can't possibly happen, but if he had to go into a Seattle, you know, with the 12th man. I mean, Chicago, a place that hasn't been loud in a long time, finally got loud, and it was very difficult. I mean, they got the, you know, air siren and everything going. It's being shown what you can do. A good defense can beat the Rams. Now, of course, the Chicago Bears got super lucky in the fact that McVay said, "What's a Gurley?" And had no idea that even though Todd Gurley was running very effectively against the Bears, didn't use him anyways. So I would have to imagine McVay is going to learn from that type of mistake and not make it again. He's not Andy Reid.
Well, and I mean, Gurley's even been struggling, I would say, since the, what game was that? Because I had him in fantasy. Since the Kansas City game, he's been struggling with knee injuries the entire rest of this year. Like, they were even talking about it during the Sunday Night Football game this past week against the Eagles, where Todd Gurley, he still played in the game, but they're like, he's questionable for this upcoming game because of the knee injury.
Yeah, for sure. And, he's got 12,000 yards, 256 carries. So, and
that's a big workload.
Yeah, exactly. That's not even counting when he gets the ball thrown to him. I mean, that's a lot for a running back to handle. But for me, what's happened recently, and the Rams are still a good team. The Rams are still a favorite to go to the NFC Championship game. But we have been shown how you can beat them.
And you're right. And the thing that I'm going to hit on that you didn't hit on is offenses also know what to do against this Ram defense. Like, it blows my mind that with all the players that this Rams defense has, that all the Eagles had to do was, hey, we're going to double team Aaron Donald. We're going to make someone else beat us. Oh, nobody else wants to beat us? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, Aaron Donald couldn't do anything against the Chicago Bears.
But that's
Same thing. Like, just put another guy or two on him.
Teams are coming out with the mentality against this defense where you see it, like, I see it in basketball all the time, where it's like, hey, we're going to lock down your star player. If X player off the bench has a great game and beats us, we can live with that because he's not used to doing that. But what we're going to do is take your star out of the game. That's what they're doing. Hey, we're going to double team Aaron Donald. We're going to basically take him out of the game. Hey, Donta Fowler, can you step up?
Yeah,
and
you need a guy like Sue to step up.
Yeah.
You need some of these guys to make that difference there. And like you're saying, you know, somebody's not doing it. You look at, I'm going to bring up Chicago again. Mac gets double teamed all the time.
He still gets through.
And he still gets through,
he even sacks him with his back.
Yeah, exactly.
Falls right into him.
That's the Mac back attack.
The Mac back attack.
But I mean, you've got other guys too. You've got guys like Hicks, you've got Goldman, you've got Roquan, you have Trevathan, all stepping up and making it. And not saying that the Rams can't do that, and the Rams don't do that at times, but they really need the rest of this defensive seven to really make that impact for them. But it's difficult too, because when you're a team that's known for having an explosive offense, you can score really quickly. When you've got a great passing game, it makes your defense tired. Your defense will struggle in the third and fourth quarter if your team is scoring too often. You know, I mean, people look at the Chiefs game, 54-51, like, yeah, sure. That's just two amazing offensives, two amazing quarterbacks, two amazing a lot of things on offense. But it's also the fact that those defenses were getting beat nonstop. They were tired. It's hard. Like, if a team gives up 50 points, it's not that necessarily that there's a bad defense. A lot of times it's that the defense is exhausted. They have no rest in that case. When I look at the playoffs here and I look at teams that I think can beat the Rams, I think Chicago already did it, so they can do it again. Well, just saying, we're not going to talk about home field advantage because I know your point.
Yep.
But I'm just saying, teams that can do it, the New Orleans Saints already beat them. They can do it again. Minnesota was not that far away from beating the Rams. They can make some adjustments to do it again.
Jared Goff and the Rams, though, had a great game. And the thing that...
Oh, for sure.
The thing that's different about that one compared to now, and we haven't brought this up, is this could also be why Jared Goff is struggling. His main guy in Cooper Kupp is injured.
Yep.
Like, you lose that main target, and it's like... I know Brandon, when we were talking about it yesterday, he goes, yeah, but Ricky's got Robert Woods and Brandon Cooks. I go, it doesn't matter. When you're a young quarterback and you're so used to having that one guy out there, when you don't, it shakes you.
But it's also a thing, too, of, sure, double team him. Now I've got two other guys I can throw to.
Exactly.
Now it's double team him.
I got one
guy I can go to. I hope he catches it.
He's not open. I got nobody I can throw to.
Exactly. So it gets a little difficult, you know. It's interesting. I think it shows that the NFC race right now in the playoffs is going to be a little bit more open than people think.
Well, we always
with the exception of maybe the Saints.
We've always said since the beginning of the year, this is the toughest division in football.
Conference, yeah.
Well, the toughest conference in football.
Yeah.
And just my point, I know you know it, but they may not know it coming in. The thing I was going to say about the Bears is if that game's in Chicago, the Bears can win. If it's in L.A., the Bears still have a chance, but I lean towards the Rams to win in L.A. compared to Chicago, only because this time of the year, nobody wants to play in Chicago. The field's usually crap. The weather's horrible. When you're a team that's used to playing in L.A., you don't want to come. I don't even want to be outside half the time in Chicago
for sure.
Time.
And it's one of those interesting things. You know, for that type of a game, if we get that matchup, which I don't know that we will, but it's possible. It's more possible than not possible, I think.
It's more possible to have that matchup in L.A. with how the standings are right now.
Well, yeah, for sure. But I do think that it's all going to depend on that defense stepping up like it did before, if they can shut down that team again. If Gurley is going to be healthy, that's going to be a big part. But the other thing, too, for both these two quarterbacks when Chicago and LA played each other, both these quarterbacks sucked. Trubisky was bad. Goff was bad. They were both bad. They both, I think it was 7 total interceptions in that game. It was not good. If either one of these quarterbacks doesn't have a bad game, it's completely different. Now, if both don't have bad games, that's a completely different style game. Now we're talking about an offensive game.
Yeah. Which the Rams have proven they could win those games.
They can.
Just look at the one against the Chiefs. They can win those games, but they've got to be clicking 110%.
Exactly, and it's harder now when certain weapons are not there and they're not available due to injury. So it'll be very interesting to see with that. I think that LA fans should be a little worried because your team is exposed a little bit, but you don't need to panic. You don't need to start burning your jerseys right now. You'll be okay. Is it possible that the Rams could lose either game 16 or 17 here? Sure. Probably not, but maybe. They could maybe lose to, if they're going to lose to one, I'm going to say it's the 49ers as opposed to the Cardinals, even though the Cardinals have a home game and the 49ers don't.
And that's an if. The thing I do want to throw out there, though, and this is an example of why Ram fans should be like, all right, let's hit the non-panic button really quick, because just look back to, 2015 for the Denver Broncos. That Bronco team started out 7-0, then lost 2 games. They're 7-2. Then went on a 3-game win streak. They're up to 10-2. Finished the season 2-2 after that to go to 12-4. Kind of what we saw at that point, a sputter out. Exact same thing that what's going on with the Rams is, hey, we won, we now lost 2. Think about it, almost the exact same thing. They go 8-0, they lose to the Saints, they win 3 in a row, now they've lost 2. The only difference is you got to win these last 2 games to kind of stay that 11-3. Let's say they split and go 12-4. It's still not the end of the world, because what did that Broncos team do in 2015? Do you remember what they did?
Go to the Super Bowl?
Went to the Super Bowl. They then, in the divisional round, beat the Steelers 23-16. Then in the conference championship game, beat just a little guy called Tom Brady. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Not that big of a deal.
20-18. And then had that, the Carolina Panthers kind of pooped the bed a little bit. That helped. But they went on and won the Super Bowl. So the thing that I would be, if I was a fan of the Rams, I would be worried because I would be a fan. And I would be like, whoa, okay, panic button, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But as an outsider, I almost want to say, don't hit that panic button. Don't be afraid, because there are teams like this Denver Bronco team that have done the same thing, that have kind of, sputtered out towards the end and then kind of caught themselves. And the big thing that I think needs to happen for the Rams is they have to get that first round bye.
Exactly.
Get that first round bye. Use that wild card week to kind of rejuvenate yourself before you head into your second season, well, maybe your third season, and the playoffs, because you're probably going to have to play Chicago, New Orleans, and then whoever wins the AFC, probably the Chargers, Patriots, or Chiefs.
Yeah, it's tough. And that's one of the things that I think fans are a little bit worried about is, let's say that the worst of it happens. The Rams, they'll beat the Cardinals, but they lose to the 49ers somehow, some way. Or you can flip it if you'd rather have it that way. I don't care.
Yeah.
And Chicago wins out. So Chicago wins out. They're getting the second seed. And now all of a sudden the Rams have to play Minnesota. Sure, it's a home game for the Rams, but it's not an easy home game. No. That's going to be tough.
And it's not the same exact circumstances as when the Vikings came to town the last time.
Exactly. And let's say you beat the Minnesota Vikings. That's fine. You're then going to go play Chicago
who you've
at
already
Chicago.
got destroyed against in Chicago.
Exactly. And, revenge game, sure, it's hard to beat a team twice, so Chicago fans should be tough too.
In Chicago.
But yeah, it's tough when it's going to be, January. It's going to be cold. I don't know if Goff has ever seen snow before, but he'll see it then. That's a joke. Don't get mad at me, Rams fans. But it's just one of those times where, and let's say they even go ahead and beat Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, but the Saints aren't going to lose to the Eagles, the the Dallas Cowboys, the Seattle Seahawks.
You know how much they like tackling each other in the playoffs.
That's true.
So, I mean, that could happen.
I think that, you get past Chicago, you're still going to have to then go to the Dome and play the Saints. It is not an easy win. It's not an easy victory. They got nothing easy in this case to be the 3 seed. I mean, the same thing goes for if it is Chicago that gets that 3 seed. They got to play Minnesota probably. Then they have to go play the Rams probably. It's whoever gets that 3rd seed is not sitting pretty. You don't have the Saints going, sure, we'll take Dallas. We'll take Seattle. We'll take the Eagles. We'll take maybe Minnesota, which Minnesota's not an easy one either, but they have an easier options out there. There's easier options for them to have to play potentially. So it's going to be interesting. The 2 and 3 seed, as it should be, because those are the lower seeds, they do not have an easy way in.
And the thing that I am looking up real quickly is just for... Oh, are they not going to have the playoff game here? They're not going to show it. Let me look it up really quick. Is it at the bottom here? Oh, of course they don't. So the thing that I was going to throw out, I'll throw it out for one game. I don't exactly know why they didn't have this other game in there. Oh, there it is. So it was a home game. If you look at it, though, the last 2 games that Chicago has played, home playoff games in the playoffs to where they have lost. The last one that they lost was against who? Aaron Rodgers and the Packers.
There you go.
Before that, you've got that Panthers team that went on a run and was really good. Before that, the Andy Reid Eagles teams from the 2001 season. So it's like the Bears, if they're going to lose in Chicago in the playoffs, it's going to be against a good team. Like when 7-9 Seattle came to town, the Bears beat them 35-24.
Yep.
Then they lost to the Packers, and I know that's the bike game, and Bears fans hate that one. But then you look at like the 2006 season, 2006-07, beat the Seahawks, beat the Saints. It took a team like the Colts with Peyton Manning, not in Chicago, in order for that historic Bear team to lose. So
and also Rex Grossman out there.
I mean,
he did his best to lose.
And you don't remember what happened after Devin Hester.
No, I've only heard stories.
Devin Hester ran it back, and then Mark
and the Bears won the Super Bowl.
The game's over. Out. Any final thoughts on this before we go ahead and wrap this segment up and move on into a fun topic of coaches who could be fired?
No, not necessarily. I do think it'll be interesting to see the city of LA, how it reacts to maybe the Rams start to do a little poorer and maybe the LA Chargers start to do a little bit better. If people start flipping.
Do you feel like if you gave a prediction in the next 2 for the Rams, wins, losses, split?
I'm saying right now the Rams are going to split.
Okay. I'm on the other side.
Chicago wins it all. Chicago gets the 2nd seed.
Maybe that's the Bear fan in you. Yeah. Maybe it's the non-Bear fan in me. I think they're going to win both games. They should have no problems with the Cardinals and the 49ers,
Sure.
Although I will give the 49ers some credit.
Nick Mullins, man.
They played well against Seattle this week. They could play well maybe against the Rams at the end of the year, but I still like the Rams. Although they've been struggling, I like them to finish out strong and win their final 2 games. This is where you guys come in. Let us know what you think down below in that comment section. If you're a Rams fan, I want to hear from you. Are you worried? Are you confident in this team? Or would you be like I would? Because if it was the Vikings, I would be, sky is falling, we're not going to win the Super Bowl, and then we'll win the next 2, and I'll be like, hell yeah, I believe in this team. We're going to win the Super Bowl. Because my confidence just wavers when it comes to my sports teams because I'm used to just so much heartache, guys. So much heartache. But let us know how you guys are feeling. And Mark, let's move on. Before we close out the podcast and make our picks for Week 16 in the NFL, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about coaching. Just one of the sexiest topics here.
That's right.
On the Onside Kick is when we talk about coaches getting fired or possibly getting fired. And today's kind of look is at Vance Joseph, the second-year head coach for the Denver Broncos. In his 2 years, he's gone 5-11, and now 6-8 so far for a combined record of 11-19 so far through 2 seasons. We know he will be the head coach for the rest of this season, as the Broncos have said they will not fire him before the end of the season, but
nice of them.
Never said they were going to not fire him after the season. I want to ask you this. Before we go into like possible replacements, I want to ask you this. Should he be fired? Should Vance Joseph be canned after 2 years in Denver?
I think so. I just don't necessarily think it's really working out for them. And I think that the Denver Broncos are in this weird middle zone right now where it's like they're not a bad team, but they're not a good team. They're stuck in the mediocre middle area. And that's kind of a problem sometimes in the NFL. It's very hard to break out of that. And, one way that you don't do it is by getting Case Keenum at your quarterback. Let's talk about Case Keenum. Well, he's not a good quarterback.
Not just that. I want to throw this out.
Yeah.
He's had 4 different starting quarterbacks since the start of 2017.
Yeah. And I think I'm very much going to wonder, is that going to kind of be the legacy of John Elway as a NFL executive, that he can't get his guy? He cannot get a quarterback that works. He loved Paxton Lynch, and that was a disaster. He came in and basically ended Tebow. He lucked into Peyton Manning's end of his career. And really, Peyton Manning's end of his career would have been seen as kind of a bust if it wasn't for an amazing defense. And Kubiak really shaking the John Fox rust off of that team and getting them to perform a little bit better. That would have been seen as a bit of a bust. And now Case Keenum, it's a joke. Case Keenum was not a good answer for the quarterback issues.
And we all know what Chris Carter said, that if Case Keenum was on the Vikings this year, we'd only have 2 wins. That Case Keenum and the Vikings would only have 2 wins this year.
This really goes to show you it wasn't Case Keenum. It was Pat Shurmur. It was Pat Shurmur's, hey, don't make mistakes. Let's just do well, and a really good run game and a great defense.
And I'm going to call plays that are good for you.
Yeah.
That fit your strengths and don't play
that's
into
the thing.
Weaknesses.
When you've got a guy like Vance Joseph, more of a defensive guy, does he understand that so much? And, of course, you have offensive coordinators and stuff like that, but that's not working out very well necessarily either. It's just that this offensive unit isn't working to a guy like Case Keenum. It's not that you can't win with Case Keenum. He just won last year. He was nearly, I shouldn't say nearly. He got to an NFC Championship game. Trent Dilfer has a Super Bowl ring. Joe Flacco was considered elite after he got a Super Bowl ring. Peyton Manning's corpse got dragged into a Super Bowl, and he got his 2nd ring. Like, quarterbacks that are not performing at their best or are not that good can still win, and still have success in the NFL. The problem really for the Denver Broncos is, yes, that defense is still good. There's no doubt about that. Phillip Lindsay's been incredibly impressive. But the Case Keenum connection with coaches just isn't necessarily working out well enough the way Pat Shurmur made Case Keenum look like a franchise quarterback. Yeah,
for me, I'm on the sense of fire his ass. Like, just get him out of town, because I'm looking at an article, and I'm going to give Sayer Bedlinger, I hope I said that right, or Bettinger, credit from predominantly orange.com on the Fansided Network. A nice article about like reasons for and against for hiring Vance Joseph. And what he lists is, here's his reasons to not fire him. 4 different starting QBs since the start of 2017. Barrage of critical players injured. Horrendous 2017 NFL draft class. Unfair expectations due to the 2015 team, that team I talked about earlier that won the Super Bowl. Improvement from last year to this year. Increased and successful usage of young players this year. The hiring of Tom McMahon as special teams coordinator. And the team's response after 3-6. All sound pretty good to me. However, his reasons for firing Joseph, I think, outweigh the ones I just led. The record, not super important to me. 11-18. Yeah, it's bad, but the Broncos, I had maybe higher expectations this year for them than what they really were. but the rest of them, the team looks undisciplined and unprepared. They've been exploited strategically. They have poor execution in late games. They have clock management issues in clutch situations. Players appear to quit or play uninspired in 2017, lengthy losing streaks, understanding the team's strengths and weaknesses, and overconfidence in underperforming players. I look at all these and I go, this is how you become mediocre.
Yeah.
Is you have a coach that does this. Like, the one that I really want to say is like the clock management in clutch situations. The only reason Andy Reid is not fired for this in Kansas City is because he wins games. Mm-hmm. They win games all the time. Doesn't matter if in the playoffs he screws up the clock and doesn't know that he has a run game.
Yeah.
They still win games.
And that did eventually cost him a job in Philadelphia.
Yeah, but that was like after they were getting to Super Bowls and NFC Championship games, and how many years did that go on? Like, if you're going to lose games, this stuff is going to pile up. And the thing that blew my mind is he was asked after the game about the field goal this past week, and he goes, well, you know, I just wanted points. Whereas you've got these young, innovative guys like McVay and even Mike Vrabel that are like, you know what, screw it, we're going for it on fourth down. Even the non-young guys like Bill Belichick, Sean Payton, rolling the dice on some plays. Like that game in Sunday Night Football where I know it wasn't McVay that called it. It was, I believe, Heckler, or Heckler's the punter. It was their special teams coordinator in L.A. that called the play, the fake pass that Heckler threw that was almost a completed pass if it didn't just hit the ground through the receiver's hands. It's like stuff like this piles up. And if you're not winning games, I don't care if I've had 4 starting quarterbacks in 2 years. You eventually have to know your team's strengths and weaknesses. Hell, Mike Zimmer and Pat Shurmur got to an NFC title game with Case Keenum, and you can't even get into the playoffs.
Yeah.
In a weaker conference.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call it a weaker conference.
Compared to the NFC?
I mean, are you ignoring the Chiefs and the Chargers?
No, I'm saying like outside, like
just the NFC as a total.
As a total, there are more teams that can get into the playoffs in my mind than the NFC, and why we have teams like the Eagles, the Redskins, and those two are playing with injuries
potentially. I do think some credit needs to be given to the AFC. They're looking like they're going to have better records in the playoffs than the NFC will this year.
In the playoffs or just in general playoff teams?
Well, I think of their playoff teams too. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, there's some teams with some bad records in the NFC. But anyway, that's besides the point. Really, when I look at this team, and you're right, there's too much there and there's not enough to really save Vance Joseph right now. I do think they need to go a different direction. The unfortunate thing, once again, for the Denver Broncos, they're not bad enough to be one of these top teams to get a top quarterback. And this, because you like to say it all the time, this is not the year to draft a quarterback anyways.
No.
So unless you're going to be lucky enough to pull off a trade for Joe Flacco, although I'm not that excited about that. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it's not that exciting.
I mean, he's not terrible.
But then you're just going to... He's better than Case Keenum, too. But it's just one of those things where it's like, is that really going to make your team that much better? The thing that I am concerned about with the Denver Broncos is, do you have a coaching staff that can nurture a quarterback? I don't think so. And I'm not going to put any blame for Paxton Lynch on anybody except for Paxton Lynch. By all accounts, Paxton Lynch had no interest in ever becoming a better quarterback. He thought he just would be amazing. Case Keenum is who Case Keenum is. I do blame the front office of the Denver Broncos for thinking Case Keenum was going to be more than just a product of a successful system. I don't know that they can develop something. And I sit there and I wonder, and I'm like, well, I know that defensive coordinators aren't the most popular thing to go after right now, but there's going to be some really good defensive there's a couple good defensive coordinators out there.
I was going to ask you, if you're John Elway, do you target an offensive guy because of what we've seen with like Nagy and McVay, or do you target a defensive guy because although this defense is getting kind of old, it's the best part about your team right now?
Yeah, and there's definitely something there to saying go for the defense because you want to make that better. You won a Super Bowl with a defensive-minded coach. You went to a Super Bowl with a defensive-minded coach.
Yeah.
You've had a lot of success with that. And I know that the man doesn't ever get any real interest from head coaching jobs, but you have potentially a very good defensive coordinator out there this year who a lot of teams are going to give a nice look at in Vic Fangio because of what he's done with Chicago's defense over the last 4 years. But you have to think, eventually I'm going to have a young quarterback, right? And eventually I'm going to want to develop that quarterback. Do I have to go with a guy who's more offensive? Go from I forget his name, Eric something from the Chiefs, their offensive coordinator. Go with Pete
Eric,
Carmichael.
I think it's Benemy.
That sounds right. Go with Pete Carmichael from the Saints. Do I go after one of these guys to try and find it? But you know what? For every McVay, Nagy, Shanahan, you're going to run into a guy like John DeFilippo, who everyone thought was going to be the next big thing, and what happened there? You're going to look at, Matt LaFleur. Everybody thought that was going to be something absolutely stunning, and he was going to very next time be the next head coach. And you know what? It's looking like it might be a couple years until Matt LaFleur is ready.
The thing I worry about with the Broncos, and this comes from reports that apparently before the year, John Elway tried to get it where he was going to fire Vance Joseph and hire Mike Shanahan. And the thing, I don't know about you, Mark, I feel weary about hiring Mike Shanahan as the head coach of the Broncos because although Mike Shanahan was a very good coach and was a very good coach, a Super Bowl winning coach for the Denver Broncos, I kind of have a stigma of it of it's not exactly like John Gruden because it's not like Mike Shanahan went and did Monday Night Football for so long, but he has been out of the game for a little bit of coaching. I just feel like that would be John Elway trying to either cling on to the past or bring in an older coach that might not connect with this day and age's NFL.
And I think that would show very much of what I'm scared with Gruden, that it's a guy who just doesn't necessarily understand what was successful. This worked when I was a quarterback. Like this in my day and age, this was the kind of coaching that worked.
Yeah.
Why doesn't it work today? I think back to Nick Saban a little bit. When Nick Saban years ago was upset at the state of football, he was sick of seeing spread offenses. He says, is this what we want the NFL to be? 3-4 years later, what's he doing? A lot of spread offense. Not entirely, but enough of it. He infused it because he knows that
it works.
If I'm going to be a head coach, I got to do what works. And I think from the GM standpoint for John Elway, he has to say what works. And I think that's going to lead him to go for one of these offensive-minded guys. But I'm a little scared for any team that's looking for one of these, the next McVay, the next Matt Nagy. Teams got a little lucky with those two. You're not going to be able to just pick up a young guy and say, yeah, he had a good offense. If you go ahead and take the next offensive coordinator from Kansas City, is it going to just be that Andy Reid was really good, Patrick Mahomes was really good, or Matt Nagy had a successful offense?
Well, and the thing you've got to kind of put into yourself too is with McVay and Nagy, when they came into their situations, they didn't have to draft their quarterback. Yeah. McVay came in, Goff was already there.
Just had to work with him.
Nagy came in, Mitch was already there. Like they already had good young quarterbacks that they could work with.
Yep. And you don't have anything to do with that. Yeah, you had nothing of that in Denver. And I think that's going to be the thing that is a big issue for a while with Denver.
Well, and that's why, to me, I wonder if it's going to be a situation of they don't, I wonder if it's going to be they don't bring in an offensive guy and either keep Vance Joseph, because they could do that, or if they fire him, if they bring in a guy like Jim Schwartz, if they bring in a defensive guy, kind of like you've got James Betcher, I think it is, from the New York Giants. The other thing, too, when you look at all these articles, too, of like possible replacements, you get the college coaches as well. Lincoln Riley's always going to be on the list.
For sure.
Jim Harbaugh's going to be always there. But, like, you've got guys on this one I'm looking at. They've got David Shaw from Stanford on there. They've got Matt Campbell from Iowa State. Like, could that be intriguing? Like, would this job be intriguing to a college coach? I'm going to say not the Harbaughs, but like a Matt Campbell, who he's done well the last 2 years, got an extension coming into this one with Iowa State, a newer head coach in college. Would this job be intriguing to that kind of a coach if that coach was looking at the NFL?
I think
like, hey, I'll
could.
look at it.
It could be intriguing, but I think these guys have to. It seems like a lot of these college,
into.
a lot of these college head coaches, they understand the way it works. There's a lot of pressure. You've got no security in the NFL. You don't have tons of security in college football either. But if you're a decent college football coach, you'll be there for a while. It's a different kind of game. It's a little easier to extend your time period in that. And you can make a lot of money in college football. A lot of money that you might not have the chance to make in the NFL. I mean, there's a reason why Nick Saban will never go back to the NFL. There's a reason why the top paid public employee in most states is a college football coach. You know, they make a lot of money. Lincoln Riley, he's already said he's not that interested. I don't think Harbaugh's going anywhere for a while. Shaw, he's kind of had some chances and never really went for it, so I don't see him going for it either. But the flip side is, I don't see John Elway as being the guy to take the risk.
No.
To go for a unconventional type of head coaching candidate.
Like, the only other one, like, in my mind, what I think it's going to be is they're either going to fire him and hire Mike Shanahan, or they're going to go out, and I hope I'm saying this name right, in, what is it, Dave Tube or Dave Tubb, the
special teams
coordinator from
the Chiefs.
KC. And the only reason I say that is I wonder if that's going to be John Elway saying, hey, I should have hired you in 2017. I didn't. All right, I'm going to hire you this time.
Possible. I mean, the man always gets interviews, but just never gets a job offer. So,
and that's the thing of too is like I know like John Harbaugh, special teams coordinator before being a head coach. Do you think that is a negative in any sense of why maybe he's gotten interviews and hasn't gotten hired?
Because the NFL doesn't respect special teams coaches
because he's not a defensive coordinator or not an offensive coordinator.
They don't respect the special teams coordinator. They never really get the chances. But, I mean, you get a guy enough shots, eventually he's going to get his day, right?
I just think Denver, with the last thing I'll say about this is I think Denver with this job, the team's in an interesting situation because I feel like on one side, for an offensive coach, it's not an appealing spot because...
No, definitely not.
Like I said, unlike the Rams with McVay, unlike the Bears with Matt Nagy... You don't have that quarterback, that young quarterback already there waiting to be molded, basically. And you always tell the story that you like where Nagy didn't even like Mitch Trubisky until he sat down in a room with him and talked with him and was like, all right, I can work with this guy. I can mold him into what I need. But also, the defense on this team is not young enough to be like, I'll throw in like a Mike Zimmer situation where Zimdog comes in, he molds that young Vikings team, and of course he made some key draft picks as well for that defense, but building that young defense, molding that young defense, like this defense is almost to the point in my mind where we're a couple years out from a Seattle Seahawks situation of, all right, time to hit the reset button. I know they brought in Bradley Chubb to kind of keep some younger players moving through it. But we're a couple years out from, all right, time to hit the reset button because Von Miller is closer to the end than he is to the beginning of his career.
And you almost have, you fear if you go for a new guy, do you have Chicago Bears Mark Trestman era of aging defense, offense not quite good enough, and things start falling apart because these guys all start leaving and all of a sudden you've got nothing left. There's some value to be said of maybe the Denver Broncos just stick with Vance Joseph for one more year. Because if things don't go super well, you know what? You'll get a quarterback next year. You know, keep Case Keenum for right now and just ride it out one more year.
If I'm not mistaken, Case Keenum's contract is a 2-year contract, correct?
2 or 3, I thought.
It is. So there's a potential out after this year, but it's an $8 million contract, base salary this year, $18 million base.
Yeah.
Next year, he's going to go from a 15 mil cap hit to a 20.
And I don't think Case Keenum's necessarily done anything to truly lose his job. He's just not very. He's just been Case Keenum is the problem. He's just been okay.
And he hasn't had that kind of Pat Shurmur-like offensive coordinator to say, hey, I am going to work with you, and I am going to bring the best out of you. Plus, it's a different receiving core. Like, he doesn't have Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs anymore.
He's got Emmanuel Sanders.
And that run game, I know he didn't have Dalvin Cook much last year because he got injured, but I'll tell you, Latavius Murray in 2017 was a lot better than what Phillip Lindsay and Royce Freeman have been. Well, Phillip Lindsay most of the year has been for the Broncos because he's been the main running back.
For sure. Although Phillip Lindsay deserves some respect.
Like, he's been doing a good job, but not nearly what Latavius Murray was doing in 2017 for the Vikings. But this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you think. First off, should Vance Joseph be fired? And then Bronco fans, I really want to hear from you. Who would you want to come in and replace Vance Joseph as the quarterback of head coach? I said quarterback. Head coach of the Denver Broncos. Let us know what you're thinking down below in that comment section. But Mark, let's do what we do every single week, and there's not many weeks where I'm going to be saying this. We've got, one more regular season week after this, and then 3 playoff weeks? Because the Super Bowl, we don't do one of these. Like, we have an entire podcast / segment about the Super Bowl when it comes to that. But we go ahead, make our picks for every game this week in Week 16. And we're starting off with your favorite. So no Thursday night football this week. So it's good if you're in fantasy.
Thursday
you don't
night
have to deal with Thursday. But there's 2 Saturday games.
Also bad.
So you got to deal with that. And the first one, actually, we talked about most of these teams in the podcast. The first one, Redskins, Titans in Tennessee. The Titans are a 10-point favorite.
As they should be.
Do they get it done against the injured Redskins?
And that's exactly what it is. I mean, this is a team that, for the Redskins, that good job. You guys were doing well. Everything fell apart. Glad to see that Alex Smith is back home finally.
Good job. You got lucky against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Well, Jacksonville Jaguars are bad, so, I mean, I wouldn't consider luck when the team is bad.
Well, hey, the kiss of death helped you out with that win.
But, I mean, that's just a rough situation. I think Tennessee Titans can easily get this one done, and they have to. They have to stay in the hunt.
Like I said, this is a team not only 5-1 at home. I said earlier they were going to get this win, no problem. I am sticking by it. The Titans will win in Tennessee against the Washington Redskins. And then the nightcapper for the Saturday games, we've got the Baltimore Ravens at 8-5.
Yep.
The 11-3 LA Chargers. The Chargers are a 4.5-point favorite in this one. Going to be playing in Carson, California. You earlier on said how this is probably going to be an upset pick for you.
I'm going upset with the Ravens. I mean, Ravens have a great defense. Not that the Chargers don't have a good defense too, but this is a great defense for the Ravens. And I know it's hard for a defense to travel like that, but I still think that when it comes to the Ravens, who, if they don't win this game, I'm sorry, you're not going to the playoffs. It's that simple. Every single game for the Ravens at this point is a playoff game to win their division and steal it from the Steelers. So I got to go with them on this one. Like I said, such an impressive defense. And Lamar Action Jackson, I know he's running all day and he's going to get himself hurt one of these days, but I don't think it's this game. Well, you keep running, you're gonna. But I don't think it's going to be this game. I think that he's been so impressive with what he can do, stealing the job very quietly from Joe Flacco, but I'm going to roll with the Ravens.
Well, I'm going to be on the other side of you, Mark. I'm going with I'm going to bolt up if you're not going to bolt up, and I'm going with the LA Chargers. This is a team, impressive win Thursday night. Like the meme said, it was the picture of Phillip Rivers' face. Hey, Patrick, that's a nice lead you got there. It'd be a shame if someone were to ruin it. And they had a nice win Thursday night. This is a team that is fighting still for home field throughout. They're still fighting for the Division II in the AFC West. The Chiefs, who we'll get to later, have a tough game against the Seahawks. I think the Chargers are going to play up for this one at home. Well, at home, air quotes, because it's not really a home for them. And they
Some
are
random
going
soccer
to
field they're playing in.
beat the Baltimore Ravens this week on Saturday Night Football. Just sounds dirty to say that. Then we're going to go into the noon games. First off, the AFC North matchup. The Bengals going into Cleveland. Cleveland is actually an 8-point favorite. It's weird to say that, although it's not weird because Cleveland has been surprisingly good this year with now 5 wins on the docket.
Yeah, they've got a little bit of a thing going for them right now, and both these teams are struggling in quite a few different areas, but when it comes to the Bengals, they've got a terrible defense, so I'm not really that worried about it. I think the Cleveland Browns can do what they need to do to go out there and beat the Bengals.
Yeah, I'm gonna match. I'm going with the Browns to get the win over the Bengals. Bengals have not looked good ever since going 4-1 to start the year. They've been 2-7
and they looked so good at the beginning too.
Well, I mean, Andy Dalton getting injured, put on IR, kind of hurt them a lot this season, but I just like the Browns in this one, getting a 6th win, and hopefully the Browns could have a perfect, if they win their next 2 games, they will have a 500 record of 7-7-1. Would it be 7-7-1? Yeah. No,
can't be 7-7-1.
can't
It's
be
only 15
7-7.
games.
Oh, they have 6. I have a little thing. They have 6 wins. Wow, I was undercutting them. So they'd be 8-7-1 on the year, but I'm going to get the Browns this win. The next one is an easy one for me. Cowboys, they got shut out. They're going to host the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are not a good team to me. Cowboys should win this one easily in a bounce-back game after being shut out by the Colts last week.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on that one. I mean, the Colts did such a good job against the Dallas Cowboys, and they kind of knew how to beat the Dallas Cowboys. I don't think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers get that same advantage. I mean, they're 1-6 on the road, too. I mean, they don't travel, even though they have a really powerful offense.
And the Cowboys play well at home.
Yeah, they got a powerful offense with Tampa Bay, but I just don't think it's going to be enough.
Well, and the next one, NFC North matchup, and the boys are back in town, Mark, because DeFilippo gets fired. Viking offense puts up 41 points. I know that there are jokes going on everywhere that, hey, the Vikings are going to lose to the Lions, but double not so fast. Of course, I am picking the Vikings, who's a 5.5 point favorite to win this game. They will walk into Detroit, get the win, keep that playoff mojo going before playing the Bears at home next week.
And this is another must-win game. I mean, the Vikings are in playoff season already. They have to win essentially every single game here. I do think they'll go ahead and win. I like what they did offensively. And it's against Miami, who has a weak secondary, but it's not like the Detroit Lions are any better.
No.
I mean, they're not. I would rank them a little bit better than Miami, and especially their secondary, but it's not that much better for Detroit. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the Vikings.
Plus, the Viking defense can travel well, and I hope that travel well.
It's not that far of travel.
No, it's not far at all. Plus, I mean, Ford Field, we've kind of made that like a second home for Minnesota. Am I right? And the next game, this one yet again should be an easy home win for the home team. Giants come in after being shut out by the Titans. They're 5-9. The Colts looking to stay in the playoff hunt at 8-6. Colts are a 9.5 point favorite, and Shane O'Mac going to be liking this one because I have got Frank Reich and Andrew Luck, almost said Aaron Luck, Andrew Luck, and the Colts getting the win over Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty easy one when I see it. I mean, for as bad as the New York Giants looked earlier in the season, 5-9 right now. You know, they're looking almost respectable. But I do think that this team here, even though Eli Manning's looking like he wants to prove that he's coming back next year, I still think Indianapolis here, they've got to win this one to get into the playoffs, so they're going to go ahead and make it happen at home.
And the next one, the battle for Florida. And I got to look up exactly right now. If the draft was today, Mark, the Jacksonville Jaguars would be the 5th overall pick.
Good for them.
One game out of being tied for the number 1 overall pick.
Nice.
They're going to stay in that race. Miami is going to get the win. Miami, a 4-point favorite. They're going to get the win against Jacksonville in Miami Gardens.
Yeah, and Miami's good at home. I mean, that's a big part of it. Miami's kind of feeling at least decent-ish about themselves because there were moments where they looked good against the Vikings.
Yeah.
They just kind of got a little bit outclassed. Fortunately, the Jaguars aren't very good. I don't think they're going to have a problem beating them.
And the next one, I've got an interesting question for you.
Okay.
Bills and Patriots.
Yeah.
Do the Patriots snap this little losing streak that they've got going on? I believe it was, the first time that they have lost back-to-back games in December since, 2002. Do Tom Brady and the Patriots snap this streak, or do the Bills play up to the Patriots and get a win?
And the Bills are just such an interesting team because they can play up to teams, but they're just so inconsistent at times. And Josh Allen, as much as he wants to run around and do it all himself, I don't think the Patriots are going to let it happen. So I do think that Tom Brady, he's had enough. I mean, he looked like he was about to cry out there when that team, when he got beat by the Steelers with that last throw, and then he's just sitting on the ground like, why? Why does this happen to me?
It's just Brady, just sitting down, just boop.
Yep. Nobody ever says he's a sulker. People do, actually. But they're called Patriots haters by people like Sean. Anyways.
Brady haters.
I'm going to roll with the New England Patriots on this one. Pretty easy.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that as well. I'm not ballsy enough to pick Bills Mafia.
I want
to,
but I'm not going to do it.
Plus, it's in Foxborough, so Gillette Stadium, the Patriots will probably get the win. Then the next one's interesting to me because I want to pick the Packers, and I will, but the Jets at 4-10 are a 2.5-point favorite. I can't pick this Jets team because of my eyes see Sam Darnold play, and they go, I don't care how bad Aaron Rodgers has been. I'm going to pick Aaron Rodgers over Sam Darnold in this one. Are you going with Vegas or against Vegas?
Here's what I'm going to do. The Green Bay Packers I wish. The Green Bay Packers have not won a single road game this year. And I'm gonna roll with it, all right?
That they go 0-8?
Jets win it.
Okay.
Jets win it. They steal this one for the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers are kind of demoralized. I mean, you could see it out there against the Bears that Aaron Rodgers' knee still kind of bugging him a little bit. He kind of re-aggravated it as well.
The road games are loss against the Redskins. That's when they hit Alex Smith. Lost against the Lions, the Rams, the Patriots, the Seahawks, the Vikings, the Bears.
Yep.
Not some easy road games.
No.
For the Packers to have, but nonetheless,
and the
you're
Jets,
0-7.
Jets going to get it done.
Well, the Jets would be the 8th one. The next one coming up, this to me, and when I say interesting, I really do mean interesting because the Eagles, they need to win to kind of keep this Philly special going. They want to make the playoffs. They're trying to ride with Nick Foles back to the Super Bowl. And then you got the Houston Texans, who have just been on a murderous row since going 0-3. They've only lost one game since week 3 of the season. We talked about a couple weeks ago about how maybe this team could make a run in the AFC. Do they keep it going after starting a new win streak against the Jets, or do the Eagles have enough to keep this Philly special rolling and try to make it into the playoffs in the NFC?
I don't think that lightning's going to strike twice in this case. I don't think they do, and the Eagles need a little bit of help to make it happen, to get into the playoffs.
Well, they need the Lions to win.
Yeah, they certainly do. And with that being said, I think that the Houston Texans are going to win this one. Everything's looking great. You know, J.J. Watt's been playing phenomenally like always. Deshaun Watson's gotten back in his groove after kind of shaking off some rust. Things are looking great for the Houston Texans, and Houston Texans, who very well might be the 2nd seed in the AFC.
Yeah, probably, and I'm going to roll with them to get the win. And their kicker, I think it's I said it right on the What's Your Fantasy because Brandon helped me. Kaimi, is that his name? Kaimi Fairbairn?
Sure.
22 points for me in the consolation bracket last year in our fantasy league. They're going to roll with it. Houston is going to get the win in Philly. The Philly special will be done, a little well done, will be that Philly steak or cheesecake. No, not cheesecake. Cheese steak?
Cheese steak.
Is it a cheese
It's
steak
a cheese
sandwich?
steak.
Okay.
Yep.
I
had one in Philadelphia under a bridge. It was fucking weird.
I thought it was going to be
delicious, though.
I can't remember if it's a cheese steak sandwich or just a steak
Philly
sandwich.
cheese steak.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to have cheese on it.
You got to have Philly and cheese.
It's the rule.
Okay. See, I'm not a huge steak sandwich guy, so
I actually don't really
know.
care much about steak
But you were in
sandwiches
Philly
either.
and you're like, I've got to have one.
Yeah, under a bridge.
Why under a bridge?
That's where it was. It was under a bridge. And
so
it was
the
weird.
shop was under a bridge.
The restaurant was under a bridge. If you're a
okay.
Philadelphia native, you probably know what I'm talking about.
Jake is.
yeah, you probably know what I'm talking about. It's a really well-known Philly place, not like the original place, but it's right under the highway.
You also say that the thing that weirded you out about Philly is how they park in the middle of the road.
Yep, they park in the median in
Why,
South
though?
Philly.
Why?
Where else
Did
you
you
gonna
ever
park?
ask anybody why?
It's just one of those things you do. It's like in Chicago how you reserve your spot by putting trash cans out on the side of the road and nobody touches them.
Or lawn chairs.
All you
Just
got
the folding lawn chairs.
All you got to do is move it, but no one's going to because that's your spot.
Yeah, that's my spot, man. I'm putting that lawn chair down. I'm putting those garbage cans
It's just a
down.
weird thing for the people.
Then the last noon game, the Falcons and the Panthers. Funny thing about the Panthers, Ed Reed posted on Twitter today. He was randomly, and for my audio listeners, I'm using air quotes, randomly drug tested again for the 7th time this season by the NFL.
Nice.
You know, just random, the 7th time at random that you're drug tested.
Right. I at some point I think the NFL just goes, we think you're on drugs.
We think you're taking steroids. You're hitting people too hard, Eric Reed.
All right. I'm gonna go ahead and claw up on this one. I mean, the Carolina Panthers
They gotta bounce back.
They're a tale of two
got to.
teams. You know, the home team and the away team, they're very different from each other.
And they almost won last night at
They
home.
could have made it happen.
Until Alvin Kamara had that late touchdown. I think the Panthers, I'm going with you, clawing up.
Yep.
They're going to get a win over the Falcons in Carolina. Then the first 3:05 game, I got to go back and scroll up for it because one of our favorite teams on
right.
our ESPN is the Bears. You got
Obviously.
the Bears at 10-4 taking a vacation in Santa Clara, California, playing the 49ers. What do you think about your Bears getting the win?
Oh, for sure.
That's it?
Yeah.
No analysis at all?
Bears going to win. I mean, look at the Bears. They're a fantastic team. They're rolling high right now. I'm actually most interested to see what Nagy does with people like Aaron Lynch and players like Eddie Jackson. Does he say, you're a little banged up. I'm going
Rest
to
him
play
up.
it easy on you. You don't need to come back until the playoffs.
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed if I was a
might.
Bear fan.
I mean, he did it with Trubisky. Trubisky, in everything they said was he could play,
But then,
but we're going to play it
let's
safe
rest
for
it.
2 weeks.
I'm going to go with the Bears as well. The 49ers, to me, play for that draft pick. Get a nice draft pick to help when you get Jimmy Garoppolo back, and the Bears will get the win in Santa Clara. I will say this. This is the thing I hate about the Saturday football games. You're giving me 2 games on Saturday, taking away 2 games that would be here in the late afternoons. Like, last week, I felt like, oh, we have a great slew of games here at the 12 o'clock spot. And then it's like, oh, I've got 2.
Yeah.
And it's like, if I go upstairs where I don't have red zone, I had the Patriot-Steeler game, and then the Seahawk-49er game was blacked out for us in Chicago. So it's like, what the hell is that?
Doesn't bother me too much because I don't have red zone. I actually will sit there and choose a game to watch.
But like for you, last week, you only had Patriots-Steelers in that late afternoon slot.
It was the correct game to watch.
Yeah, but during the commercials, you're going to switch over to the other one. That's what I do.
No, during the commercials is when you get stuff done. Like
I
you do your
hate
laundry
commercials.
and stuff.
I can't stand commercials. But the next game, the Rams and the Cardinals, I think this one's easy. Rams with the win. They will bounce back no matter how bad they've been the last 2 or 3 games.
Yep, exactly.
Mark's like,
Plain and
nothing
simple.
else to say. Then the last late afternoon game, the Steelers and the Saints. Steelers, 6-point underdogs, and you're thinking they're gonna lose this game, and the Saints are going 13-2.
Well, you're going into New Orleans. Very tough to do. And I know that the Pittsburgh Steelers looked really good against the Patriots. But just before that, everybody
That's
was
a little
saying...
emotions behind that,
Yeah,
too.
just before that, everyone's saying, no, Pittsburgh's done. They're going to lose this division to the Ravens.
To the Rams, that would
it's
be
still
shocking.
Totally possible. New Orleans Saints are looking absolutely stunning.
Yeah, I'm gonna go
Minus
with,
last week.
I'm gonna go with the Saints as well, just because I'm not ballsy enough to pick the Steelers. Yes, I know they beat the Patriots, but that's an emotional win, and this is something where, like I said it last week. I'm not gonna pick the Steelers to beat them until they beat the Patriots. They beat the Patriots, and I'm still saying, the Saints will beat them.
Plus, let's be real here. The Jaguars beat the Patriots, too.
True.
Jaguars
And look
are
what
bad.
happened to them. They got kissed out of the playoffs. Then we've got the Sunday night game, the Chiefs at 11-3, Seahawks at 8-6 in CenturyLink Field in Seattle, Washington. Yes, the Chiefs are 2.5-point favorites, but is there any chance the Seahawks get the upset at home against one of the hottest teams in football?
Yeah, I'm going to go with it. I'm going to say that the Seattle Seahawks do it.
I am as well, because I want the Chargers to be the number one overall seed finally in the AFC.
I don't think it's going to happen, but I would love to see the Chargers get that honor as well.
And then the game nobody's going to watch unless you're a Denver Bronco or an Oakland Raider fan. And even at that point, you might say, hey, it's Christmas Eve. I ain't going to watch football today, but Monday Night Football. Or you're going to be
like, I don't want to watch this football game, but I don't want to talk to my family.
Christmas Eve action, the Broncos and the Raiders on Monday Night Football. Who you got in this meaningless matchup, the Broncos or the Raiders?
You know what I'll probably be doing instead of watching this game is watching White Christmas, because apparently that's a tradition.
Love that movie.
I'm not a huge fan of it.
You don't like that movie?
Bad. It's not bad, but it's not great.
That's some good old Bing Crosby, some good
Andrew
old Andrew sisters.
Yep.
Hell yeah, man.
Yep. The in-laws, they love that movie so much.
Oh, I'm trying.
And I just think it's okay.
Oh, I'm trying to think of. Shoot, don't tell me. It's Bing Crosby, and it's not Danny Cannell. What's the guy's name?
Oh, I don't remember the other guy.
The other actor, Danny Kaye. That was it.
Yep.
I knew it was something like that, but Danny Kaye. Oh, I love that movie, Mark. One of my favorite Christmas movies.
It's a Christmas Eve tradition all of a sudden. And that's one of those times where I would be like, maybe I would rather watch this football game. But I'm actually going to roll with the Raiders. I think the Raiders are going to mess up their chance to be, in every single way.
They're just going to give
Dallas
the 49ers
Cowboys
the first overall
pick.
pick.
The Dallas Cowboys get into the playoffs. The Bears have the potential to be the third or second seed in the playoffs, and now they're going to mess it up themselves by beating the Broncos.
Oh, man, it is going to be a fun week for sure, but this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you guys think down below in the comment section. What games are you picking? What games are you excited for? And let us know if you're going to watch that Christmas Eve game. Maybe you're just a person that's like, guys, I love football so much, I'm going to watch every game. I don't care what it is. And I respect you guys out there, because I was definitely one of those, especially when I was in my younger youth. And I was really a more optimistic person than I am right now. But thank you guys for watching. A little bit of housekeeping here at the end. Make sure to check out patreon.com/mostvaluedpodcast, where you can help support MVP. You can also do so by getting yourself an MVP t-shirt down below in the description, or at mostvaluablepodcast.com. You can get your MVP each and every day. Last but not least, make sure to go on to Apple Podcasts and iTunes and rate and review the Onside Kick. Thank you guys for watching on YouTube. Thank you guys for listening on podcast services around the world. And as always, have a good day, everybody.